Okay, it's running. Shall I show you where I got up to?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is from a fresh reload. This is our, I don't even know what we call this now, but I guess it's the Dreamcatcher for lack of a superior version. Um, but it is working really well in terms of the frames. So this entire thing, as I keep showing you, well, I've been showing the same thing for a while now, but because it's all frames and it's all like I spent an untold amount of time going through and getting rid of all the little bugs that were in various bits and pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
it you can see repositories there. You can make new repositories. A new one. It just kind of all just works. Um,
Hey,
you can
it's not
select
something
different
you hear every day, isn't
branches. Yeah, so there's like the
it?
Genesis branch. The Genesis branch as a concept is holding up remarkably well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one extra branch that captures all the other branches in the repo. Seems to work a charm. Um, these are the commit histories working. Um, you can go back in time and see different ones. You can browse the files, view the files, blah blah blah. But I guess my point really is that the frame thing, like it works nicely, like it looks like it's actually part of the. It
Mm-hmm.
looks like it's part of the app. You wouldn't necessarily know that this was an iframe, but it's a completely isolated page, and the performance is really good. Like it's quick to load. It's quite snappy to use. Um, yeah, it's a lot of that polish takes a lot of time, but it all those little kinks are slowly getting um, polished away, so that they end up, it's just a fairly stable looking, fits in
Yeah.
nicely. All the things render well. The fucking scroll bar shows up like it's supposed to. Um, I can do things like reload the frame, saves your data and reads your data, and it's all, you got diagnostics going
How
on.
are how are transcludes working at the moment?
They are not working at the moment. I am doing that right now. So as of like
Cool.
a day and a half ago, I started working on. Um, so this is the SDK that I'm using for controlling the AIs,
Mm-hmm.
and I went with the latest version, which is SDK version 5, which is a little bit raw. It's still in beta, but the reason is that they've modified how they
Who are these
do.
guys? They're not OpenAI. They're something else, is it?
Vercel is like a pretty large hosting platform company, and they put out an SDK that wraps everyone. So it wraps
Mm-hmm.
like OpenAI, Grok, Azure, Anthropic, all that.
I see.
The reason is that by using this SDK, first of all, it's very close to what OpenAI provides anyway in terms of like learning, but it allows us to have all these other providers at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like no extra costs. Plus, it's got a bunch of image generation providers, and it can do um, transcription, so some audio things. So yeah,
That's quite a long list of models they've got there.
yeah. Well, it just keeps getting bigger. So I mean, to your point previously, like the tier one guys, it's like a very fragmented space. It appears anything but over, and people keep finding niches where their model fits. So
Yeah, it reminds me of the electricity market here in the UK, where you've got some niche providers saying this is all green. You got some others. This is the cheapest you can get. You know, there's even a nuclear one. Um, the market will provide, but essentially, when you turn the light on, you don't really care.
You really don't, eh? Um, so the reason why I went with this provider, and also with the latest version of it, is because of how they do their streaming protocol. So that's probably one of the trickier things to get going, because we've got artifact streaming, so it needs to be quite precise or compatible, because it's not made to be just web calls the way the artifact interacts, and so I needed a protocol that would fit into the artifact protocol, and that's what this gives us. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been toiling away to get the chat format defined, um, to get a NAP installed. So I'm just going to make a bunch of shortcuts with this one. I'm going to install a NAP called the Chats NAP that will manage everything in /chats. Inside /chats, there will be one folder per thread or per chat.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the folder, there will be a list of JSON objects that represent each message. Each JSON object will be prefixed by this key, which will be the repository key of the identity that made the message, followed by just an incrementing integer number. So starting at 0, and you're like message 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where the messages from a particular agent will go. That's how the messages are interleaved or interspliced.
Mm-hmm.
Transcludes will just be another message type, where a transclude just represents a folder. The data structure of a transclude will be that there's a folder called /transcludes. In there, every time you make a transclude, that's where it gets stored. It just gets referenced in the chat, and then the background mechanics will haul it around and move the data around. And when you type something and you click, send, it's gonna take the transclude, turn it in, use concat on it, and then stuff it into the model. So it's really the mechanics of the platform, or the substrate, seem pretty good. The mechanics of the framework works pretty good. The workflow I got going for it, I mean, it ain't perfect, but it works good enough. Like, I'm really not dying from inefficiency here. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of just moving along, and then there's no process management at the moment, so it's kind of just when you kick off a process, it just happens. So you won't be able to like look inside it, see which processes are running, and replay it, but that'll
Yeah.
come. We need this for when we start doing long running jobs, long running agents, swarms of agents. You need some sort of a way to see what
Yeah.
all the agents are up to.
Well, that's just like that's cuddling for the user, isn't it? Knowing that sitting waiting for something that's never going to happen.
Yeah, or just watching the burn, and you're like, why? Why would it
Yeah.
burn? So,
Uh,
look, I mean, it's really just it's actually down to the nitty gritty, which is down to, message formats, and reading this file and that file, and how do I choose the message format? The issue that I'm having is I keep having to make fairly big decisions, like, what does it mean to install a NAP? how do we provide errors if a NAP, like a NAP needs to control a file path, a file system path, and so how do we respond or react when something happens, like a user goes in and tries to drop a file inside of the chats or the transcludes folder, but that's supposed to be managed by a NAP, so that needs to be bounced. So I'm not addressing any of those issues, but those are just sort of cropping up as I go, as like,
That seems tractable, isn't it?
yeah, that's solvable, but they add up and they take time. So I'm just punting all those things to the side, and then we'll have to come back around and pick them up.
Yeah, yeah, but this is getting very close to being usable, useful.
Yeah, I think I was feeling super empty about it because I was the framework itself is kind of dull. Like it's a necessary step, but it's pretty painful, and like here it is running, and you wouldn't even know. Like that's sort of the thing. It's like its job is to just disappear and not even be present. But I figured that the reason why I was able to do the frame protocol was because Artifact was just naturally a remote procedure call type of a thing. Like it was basically JSON objects being passed around to invoke functions, and so it doesn't really care about what bridge the JSON objects travel over, and that's why frames was very trivial to make, because it just dropped right in. So frames and naps, very, very much the same type of protocol. The reason why it seemed empty to me, I think, was because I had no execution environment, so I was really just making a data layer, and I hate data layers, they're fucking boring. So that's probably why I felt so scunnered, I suppose, with the whole thing. But
Data layers are boring.
They're so boring, dude.
Until they break.
And they're not even like alive in any way. They don't do any data processing. It's really just marshalling data around. So that's probably why that felt so boring. But once we can get the process manager going, then we have application logic. So it's executing something, which is now a little bit more fun. But actually, the real fun is hooking up the AI, because really all programs are pale in comparison to AI, I think, at the moment. And I just need to remind myself that all we're doing is making a mount point for various AIs to be of service to humans, and that's really all there is to it. Our software is kind of lame in comparison to Tier 1.
Well, yeah, we have substantially fewer billions.
Yeah, but no matter what we do, we're never actually going to be that cool on our own. We're cool because the AI can be of great use inside this framework, more so than sitting in its own Tier 1 made wrapper. And we are also interesting if we get people and we get the social networking aspect of it going. Like, that's real fun. There's a lot of jokes about OpenAI starting a social network. I'm sure they will at some point, but no one's really done an AI social network yet.
I think they've got bigger fish to fry.
Bigger fights to do, yeah.
Yeah. They're in a existential race right now, and
yeah, you can't take time to build a social network, eh?
Yeah, I mean, they've got enough money. Maybe they've got like a 6-man team somewhere, thinking about it. But no way is it getting any kind of, precedence.
Yeah, no priority. So I mean, that seems to be our bet. Social network with data sovereignty and all the AI you can possibly, like the ability to compose the AI any way you want with your private data. And this button, the innovations tab, is probably going to be the last one to be delivered. I know probably processes will be the last, but innovations will be innovations is hard to do. So yeah, we'll get there, but that's a tough one.
Yeah. So if I were to use this today, what could I do with it?
Fuck all, really. You could browse around and be like, oh, well, that's sort of cool or not cool. Sorry, it's sort of like you could poke around at it,
All right. Okay.
and then
All right.
probably within the next anywhere from 2 to 8 hours worth of work, you'll start to see chats pop up, and then you can go new chat, and then so the interface I was going to put here is just when all your chats are listed here, you can click on one and it will show up in this window,
Mm-hmm.
and then but there'll be some control options if you want to like resume it, which means that the chat will pop up here
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of want to. I don't know. It's a little bit clunky. I'm not sure the best way to do it, but you kind of need to. You might want to be talking about this chat, or you might be talking about several chats in this chat over here, but other times you might want to become that chat or resume that chat. So you need to make that become this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Because chat is necessarily should be part of transclude. It's like, hey, we talked about this thing. We
Yeah,
talked about that thing. Let's talk about those two things together.
yeah, and then I might want to talk about all my chats. That should be
Right.
easy as well.
It seems like I don't know. Shit, I'm getting into UI here. I'm not an expert at all, but it seems like a list of chats. Say down the on the right panel, down the left hand side, list of chats. When you click on it, you see the chat
Yeah,
on the right side of the right
over
panel.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, just because to avoid going back each time. So if it replaces it all, it's like, no, that's not the right chat.
Oh, I see.
Back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other option is I could make it that um, when you click on it, it shows up here. Because otherwise, if I do it the way that you just said, you'll have one chat here, a list of chats here, and now this other chat over here, which is like now you're showing two chats. Where the fuck am I? I'm going cross-eyed, and so maybe that's a better way. Like the easy click, it just pulls up the chat in this chat screen, but there's other options to press if you want to just talk about the chat.
Yeah, I think you're right on the left hand side being the active thing. But when you're going through chats, you want to remind yourself of what you chatted about. So
You want to
it's
peek it, right? You just want to peek at
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's like, give me the first 10 lines. What was my first prompt on this one? It's like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, you click on it and then it'll concertina down, and then you'll see a little bit of a summary, maybe, like a bit
Yeah,
more detail.
yeah, yeah.
And then if you want to
AI
get into
summary
it,
would be great. And then
yeah,
it's
okay.
like, and then you
All
go,
right.
okay,
And then when you
okay.
want to get into it, then that's a button click, and then it will move to being over here,
Yep.
or you can just click to just view it, I guess. Fuck.
Or you can add it to a transclude saying, okay, right,
Yeah.
adding that, filter, going down, down, down,
Yeah.
down, down, down. Yep, add that.
Yep.
Then you go back to your repo and go, all right, here's my static data.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you can vibe code up your own version of that frame to suit your own needs if you want, and that's kind of that's when we start getting into the main point of frames, is that there doesn't have to be a interface that we all have to use because that's the only one, and it's painful to make another one. It's like, well, if what we're asking for is fundamentally incompatible, then we just have two, and you use your one, I use my one, and we all just
Right.
get along.
Right.
And so that frame, the frame swapping in and out is kind of where it's that there's sort of like little milestone things, or like there's like a series of events that you can say that we reached a certain milestone, like when there's competing versions of the chat frame, you know, that's like pretty good. Like we've reached a milestone there. That's the point. You don't have to
Yeah.
just eat whatever, you know, it's
Yeah.
right. Like that's the stupid thing about the way classical software is made. It's so expensive and painful that now we all have to have the same bloody interface. It's like, what are we, the communist state? Like we can't afford two or three? Like what if I want a slightly different one? And they're like, no, mate, your WhatsApp screen needs to look this way. It's like, oh, I can change the background. That was nice of you. What if I want to change fundamental
Yeah.
structural pieces, right? Well, what
Yeah.
now? And
Exactly.
so, yeah, that's sort of where we're getting to. But I think what I'm starting to hunger for is a tool that lets me reason about why certain features of a portion of the app are the way they are. Like there should be a way to reason about how to lay out the chats. And
Well, that's an interesting idea. By reason, you're talking about an AI reasoning.
yeah, because that's the thing I hunger for when I'm building Artifact, because I have to make all these design decisions about, what does it mean to install an app? What if I want to install more than one version of an app at two different paths? How do I specify which one of those I'm intending to dispatch an action into? How do I stop the the NAP from writing outside of its allocated boundaries? What if the NAP needs to read broader than its specified boundaries? Am I going to restrict its read access to only a folder? There's a lot of different design decisions that I have to make all day, every day, and it would be really nice if a machine could help me with that, but also present or manage the filing system that's required to keep track of all that information. So the spec of Artifact ought to be some kind of a tree structure broken up by concern or different. Now we're in the NAPS area, and in the NAPS area there's a sub area that's like installation, permissions, execution, isolation, multiple NAPS. Like the architecture of the system should be being curated by a machine that's grinding over it, making sure that every time I have a bright idea, it finds its way into the right spot within the knowledge tree,
Yes.
right?
I
And
mean,
it,
that goes into the back end, but to make it simple on the front end, really, I think what you're saying
it
is,
applies as well, I believe.
yeah, yeah, I think it's congruent. If you had a heat map of how someone uses a UI,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be beyond AIs to figure out how to improve that AI based on your actual usage without hiding stuff that you just don't really care about but
right.
never will use.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, I would expect the machine to come up with suggestions for what the next feature is, or if you're going to rearrange the buttons, have some metrics. It's like, well, the distance traveled by the mouse cursor was reduced by 2%, and that's why we moved this button over here. Da da da. Like, these types of concerns they are the same for all projects. There's no need to.
Self-writing architecture. The how many times does Bad get it wrong? It's like writing beyond the box, that it contains, or
Yeah, well, you just
you
need
know,
something to hold it home, like to keep it steered. But normally, like a product manager would keep that in their head often,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they'd sort of make decisions on it here or there where they compromise the cost, and that they've sort of got their own opinions on what their users' feedback was. And so this is a way to just sort of offload all of that. And
Mm.
then if you want to narrow down your user scopes significantly, where you're saying like, actually, I only want a user of one, it's just me. And then now that same reasoning applies for only how you use it, because the issue that a product manager has is they got to look at how's everyone using it. Like, you always get the trap of you got to treat it like one whole batch, right? You can't segment your users and then you're like, this group of users needs a different thing than this one for this particular piece of UI, right? Because you can't. It's typically inefficient to switch between the two. But if we've
Yeah.
automated that that requirements, if we've automated the product management effectively, then we can greatly reduce the administrative overhead of running multiple versions.
Well, the idea of multiple versions kind of goes out the wall because really it could be rendered in context. So, for example, if I was had eyesight problems,
Right.
I could say, you know, bigger font.
Right.
And if I were colorblind, it's like no reds or whatever it is.
Yep.
And that would always be rendered, but that might not be practical when showing a map.
No.
But the AI should be able to make its best guess.
Yeah, I think it's pretty essential to have that kind of Overwatch layer, that product management layer, because like otherwise, as you're vibe coding away, the things you get back are often so wrong that you're like, no, no human would make it that way, even though it's technically correct. No human would make that kind of change, and so what I'm trying to poke at is the need for this overarching guidance that makes sense, and you can't just hope for it. You need to structurally code it.
But Vibe is single shot, right, for the code.
Well, I mean, typically you chat, and so you flop the first thing, and then you
single agent though.
Single agent, correct? Yes.
Right. Okay. I think that's what you're poking at there, because you're as a human interacting with a single agent. If there was another agent who was remembering all the prerequisites and making judgment calls about maybe a bit of this, maybe a bit of that, and talking to the agent as well, it'll probably come up with a better result.
That's right, and that's really the agent I'm looking for, because I think that even with a little bit of little bit of coaxing, it would do a better job at a lot of these things than a typical human, because it would be able to make product management decisions that were based on some reasons. It's like, well,
right. I mean, you could even that agent could be really quite simple. It could just read off what you previously said. It's like, I'm colorblind. I can't see red, and
like all that stuff.
I'm slightly blind, so I need bigger font. And then it's just looking over the shoulder of Vibe saying, "No, make that font bigger."
Yeah, so, like it's giving the feedback to the Vibe coder without the human getting involved, because it's memorized what the human's rules were, but it's also prompted in such a way that it knows enough about product management that it can sort of hold good practices in context. There's nothing stopping us from being able to provide a browser agent that can actually view the page, interpret the images, and click around, and also do measurements on that. It's like, well, obviously, if I click down here and then I had to click down there, then I can calculate the distance of the click traveled, because the agent puts out coordinates, and you're like, well, this score is awful. Like, I had to move my mouse around a lot.
Heat maps.
Yeah, the heat map's too hot, because now the my mouse distance budget is blowing. Surely there's a way to, and so you get this feedback, and it's like, try again. And what I'm sort of striving for is a way to specify work for the agents that can take them many hours to complete, because I can't have them coming to me and the machine just sits there and does nothing until I kick it. Like, that's stupid. Like, I need ways to get it to do stuff that's long. Like, because I can spin more plates if a plate can spin for longer. Like, if I'm
I
like,
mean,
that's a 2 hour job.
that sounds like a promise, right? Go off. I'll continue as we are. Take as long as you want, but come back.
Yeah, because I can't. I literally don't care how long it takes. I can always find something else constructive for me to do, but I care
Yeah.
about two things. Number one, don't ever make me repeat myself, and that also means, like, don't make me say obvious things. So know what you're talking about. Know about user
Yeah.
interface design. Don't
Yeah.
come back to me with something stupid. But the second thing um, is don't, like, I don't want to have to repeat it, but I also don't want to have to wait for something to finish before I say what I want next. Like, I want to be able to say a bunch of things that are like, do this, then do that, then do that, and then once you get to that, maybe do this and maybe do that. Like, I need to specify a long trajectory.
So you're
Um,
firing off jobs.
well, yeah, but I can't wait for. See, with Codex, I have to wait. I can't stack things like that because I know that if I gave all the instructions all at once, they'd go awry, they'd go wrong, and some of them depend on changes being made higher up. So, finish this refactoring. Now the structure of the project is a bit different, and based on that new structure, do this other modification. So,
That's interesting. Sorry, go on.
like, I currently can't specify long trajectory jobs. I can't specify a workflow. I can only get a detailed single job out, which is kind
Right,
of crippling.
right. Well, the workflow at the moment is specified, but it's flopped into your brain. It shouldn't be in your brain.
No, because if the more I can get it out, the more I can go and do something else. Because after, I mean, the Codex jobs take long enough that they're like anywhere from 8 to 14 minutes or whatever. I really don't care at that point. Like, I've switched on to something else. You could take an hour and it wouldn't bother me. I'll get back to you.
Well, here's an interesting thought experiment. Okay, so what you've explained there is exactly how I use tabs and why I come to a critical point where there's too many tabs
Right.
and I'm hunting and pecking. But the reason I use tabs is exactly for that. It's like, okay, right, I'll give you the context and right, boom, go and do this. I know it's going to, the busy bar will take 10, 14 minutes, whatever. So I'm going to do something else. But I know in my head, in the process, right, okay, so I'm expecting this. But I can only do one layer. I can do parallel tasks, but I can't do if this, then that.
Why not?
Because one tab might be doing a job that will inform what a second job needs to do given what it's come conclusion
Right.
of.
Yeah, but you should be able to say that and just dump all that down, as well as your thoughts about what may or may not happen.
Right,
Right.
right,
And it should be
exactly.
recognized as, so in this screen it would show as like a special kind of next message, almost like you'd select the previous message and then you'd sort of go and then.
Yeah, sort of.
So
You
like,
take
you're
it.
like that and then and then and then and then and then maybe this, maybe that.
Yeah, I mean, take a simple process. Right, here's a transcription. There's a number of questions in that.
Right.
Extract the questions. Boom, off you go. Here is an image. Do deep research behind this image and tell me the history of it. Boom, off it goes.
Yeah.
And a third one might be combine number one, number two, and answer my questions based on the results of number two. Here's what I'm inspecting. Here's the guardrails, and number 4 might be give me a summary and what I've done wrong, for example.
Right. But
So at the moment, I'm doing all that in tabs.
I know, and I think you're overloaded there because the bots aren't accurately recording all the things that you said in the past, or all the corrections, or all the preferences that you indicated in the past.
There's no
So
common context.
there's the overload of that, in that it's kind of dumb, like it's not learning from its interactions with you. So that's the first problem. And then secondly, it's not treating your input text as this multi-step workflow thing. Whereas if it interpreted it like that, it would then break it up into tasks, and then you'd be able to collapse, say, 10 tabs into a list of tasks that it had determined, and then you can go in and correct it and be like, no, not that, right? And you can build on each one, and then you can see the run, and you can see where it got up to, and then you can look at, that didn't go how I wanted, so then you can go back and edit a part of the workflow. I think that's more what you're just looking for, a better way to specify long running jobs, because in that interface,
multi-steps jobs that require, it's not a linear job that it might branch off, and then it's like, okay, you might need a bit more input in this one, or you might need to talk to another job if it's stopped, or if it's complete. That's an important thing. But yeah, if the number of tabs that I have open, well, as you've seen, is like ludicrous.
Yeah.
And I'm having to juggle this in my own head. And the reason I've got that is I'm effectively doing what you're describing, in MeatBrain, but not AI.
Right. So if I gave you that, then you'd be able to specify jobs that could take a long time. Like, how long would you guess? A couple of hours to complete?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy with a couple of hours, because then, as you say, you can get on to something else.
Right.
I mean, well, remember flashing ROMs? It used to take about that time, and you just get onto the next job while your ROM was flashing. It's like,
yeah, it's actually like a horrible feeling when the job doesn't take long enough that you can move on. Like, that's the worst. You sort of...
I've noticed that, actually. I had that this morning with 4.0.
Yeah, you're kind of in dead zone there.
I ran through a 1.5 hour transcript in, well, it must have been about 2 seconds. It's like, is that right? I just don't trust you. But that spinning plates, or more precisely, that project management process, the management of the thinking of what you're actually trying to do. Now, there's a piece here that each thread probably should know what the context is of the other threads. It's like, the reason you're doing this is to answer, to provide information to this thing. That's a prompt engineering thing. I'd probably give that a go.
Yeah, I mean, that could be just a background agent that has view over all the current running jobs.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't have to be hand-typed. In fact, it shouldn't be hand-typed. But it's almost like there's a job agent. It's like, okay, so you've got the whole job. You need to kick off other agents in order to do each of the parts in parallel or sequentially, and maybe there's...
the orchestrator.
And then everyone knows the context. The reason I'm saying that is, again, I keep on harking back to the Rules of War. You need to know what your commander's intent is, otherwise you can go wildly astray.
So I think that fits in this interface, where we could modify this interface to allow you to specify these tasks, so they just show up as boxes. And then we're just like manipulating that. I think that's all that is.
It sounds a bit like that, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
if we had boxes that said, okay, what you're trying to do, how do you want to do it, when do you need it done by, why are you doing it? Um, the usual W's probably would cover it. I mean,
yeah.
I know
It
it's quite
might
boring, but
it might need another kind of a frame out here to give you some different clicky tools, maybe. But in
yeah.
general, that doesn't sound out of the realms of something that we could muddle our ways through.
No, and we're already getting it with deep research. Every time we hit deep research, it usually comes up with 4 questions just to like,
Yeah, which I find super annoying. But the concept of a thing that just sort of checks to make sure that it got things right
it's
before proceeding is a good thing.
it is, and what it misses at the moment is it doesn't check on any back context. Usually, on deep research, it's a new thread, and so it knows nothing. And it's going, okay, what do you mean? And it's obviously using non-deep research in order to come up with those questions.
Yeah.
So it just churns through really fast,
Right.
comes up with a
So
bunch of
so
questions.
here's these two models came out. Did you see the notes
I
about the
did,
release?
I did.
Okay, so why that's good for us is because the way that they work is quite interesting. They require the MCP protocol, sorry,
Hmm.
the model context protocol, and they only accept two functions, search and fetch.
Hmm.
And they, with those two functions, they just keep grinding away, doing their research thing. So we can provide our knowledge base as the context for those two functions, and so it can deep research over a repo of knowledge. Um,
Oh, I hadn't spotted that. Okay, so if there's well, permissions, to one side has access to a repo or multiple repos as a context,
yeah.
then we can ingest that.
So here's the deep research page. I found this page exceptionally insightful because it gives a lot of prompt engineering examples.
Hmm.
Like it's how to prompt the deep research bot. Um, and so shit. Hang on, where are we? Blah blah blah. There. A search tool that takes a query and returns search results. A fetch tool that takes an ID from the search results and returns a corresponding document. So with those two tools,
Well, those are kind of married together. I mean, essentially, that's one capability,
yeah,
um,
and that's all they're doing.
and that's all they do.
Yeah, that's all the deep research tools do. So we can do it over the web, or we can do it over our own knowledge, or a combination
Can
thereof.
you can you direct deep research to an endpoint like a repo?
At the moment, yes, you can do that using
But outside of the prompt, I mean,
what?
as a default, as it were, because at the moment
No, I
it's like
don't get you.
searching everything. I think,
So
well, at the moment it seems to be run deep research like
yeah.
scrapes everything.
Well, I can right now. I can run deep research, and I can specify GitHub, and I can turn off web, and now it will only do the repos that I choose.
Oh, right, okay, right, and okay, so that can be automated in the background. Okay,
Yeah, Gmail as well
so
as a new one, so that's all fun.
oh, I never spotted that.
Yeah. Oh, they added a bunch new connectors in here.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's just getting more and more. I mean, that's basically their move, right? It's just add more
There's
connectors.
SharePoint as well.
Oh.
Yeah. Wait until Oracle comes in there. They'll break the world.
Yeah. But yeah, look, it just seems like we can take those models and we can point them in a chat so that you're in here, you pick the right tool, you're like, okay, deep research over blah blah blah. But better still, we'd want the jobs that you laid out, like the multi-step jobs, would be able to make a choice that, okay, I think I need to do some deep research, and I'm going to just kick that off in the background. I'm going to try and solve this other way, and then if I get stuck, I'm going to come back and look at the deep research where it's at. And so I'm going to keep looping around between all these tools I have. And then if I get a really solid question that I want to ask O3 Pro, I'm going to, narrow that down so the tokens don't cost so much. And then I'm going to go bang, ask the wise man on the mountain, get the answer back, carry on. And you kind of want these things to, you just
Yeah.
want these things to keep grinding for you, right? Like, because they go and they stop, and you're like, like my bots stop when I go to sleep. That sucks.
Yeah. I kind of want the bot to text me with a question, um, and don't ask stupid questions. And by stupid questions, it's like if I've told it the intent,
You should never,
I
yeah,
don't care how it's done. I just want that thing done. So
yeah. So why don't I play the snippet I wanted to go through with Sam Altman? Um,
Sammy boy.
Sammy.
I quite like that meme that you made there. I just need time.
Excited for. Most of the way people use AI today is sort of like send a request,
Can you hear that? Okay.
Play it again.
get a response.
A little
Send
bit quiet,
ChatGPT
but not by
request,
much.
it might
Maybe
think for a
10%.
second, it might not. It sends you
Good.
something back. You are in one of those like vibe coding things, and you do something, and you get something back. I think I'm very excited for a world where each of us has, a copy of O3 or many copies of O3 that are just constantly running, constantly trying to like say, oh, I see this happening now, this, and I'm reading Slack and I'm reading email and I see this and this and this, and you asked about this yesterday. Here's a new idea, and starts to just we have this like team of agents, assistants, companions, whatever you want to call them, that are doing stuff in the background all of the time, and that I think will really transform what people can do and how we work, and kind of maybe to some extent how we just sort of like live our lives.
So I use O3 all the time. It is helpful to me as a journalist. It can fact check stuff for me. It can edit stuff for me. When is the moment when like it just kind of knows what I do, and in the morning it actually just kind of starts doing that stuff without me telling it?
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about, except I don't think it should be without you telling it. But I would love if I woke up every morning and there was, a drafted response to every email that had come in overnight, and I could click and I could say, I want to send this one, I want to edit this one, I want to send that one. If I could open ChatGPT and say, hey, here was the stuff you were working on yesterday that you didn't finish on your to-do list. Here's my attempts at that. Do you want me to take this action, that one? And by the way, here are these other things that happened overnight in, with a customer or in the world or whatever. And, here's a set of stuff I could do for you. And I have like all of this ready to go. And I could just sort of go through and say like, okay, do that, don't do that. Here's what should have been different here. That I'm very excited about, but I don't want to like go to sleep and have O3 just start taking actions for me.
All right.
Oh, he doesn't want O3 to take actions for him.
So
He's still nervous, isn't he?
no, I think he just wants there's two schools of thought, right? You set the AI up and you go to sleep, but there's another school that wants to be eagerly engaged with it, directing it, learning from it, and all that. And I don't think it matters, those two schools of thought, really. I guess my point is that it's obvious what we want this tool to do,
Yeah.
right? We all want it to do the same thing.
Yeah, right. The two thought that's going to be the size, going to be the rat catcher. The centralizer, writes a huge, tome of rules, and wants it to do that, and Ratcatcher wants it only to report by exception.
Yeah, so the problem is all the big boys are heading there too. And so as they cut a path through the mountains to get there, we get good toys along the way, like deep research and all that. But I'm just not sure. Like, can we make our agents behave like what they just laid out there? Like, we kind of have to be able to, because we're not an agent platform if we can't do those things. But they're trying to do them too.
If it's got so far up the if it's appearing on their radar, then we can just assume it's going to happen at some point, especially if he's talking about it.
Yeah. So why would we persist? Like, why wouldn't we just wait?
It's that what we were talking about yesterday. It's like, what's the trigger point? We could just wait until AGI was here. But there's scraps around the giants at the moment that they haven't done yet, for whatever reason.
Right, but we don't want to be trying to do something that they're gonna just do anyway, because
but the thing is, he's talking about behavioral change. Right, tier 1, this is what I was saying the other day. I think tier 1 actually eats tier 2. Sorry, tier 2 eats tier 1. Tier 2 eats tier 3. Because kind of what you want is it to be friendly. Tier 1 is always going to be about the heavy lifting. Producing power, producing CPU, GPU, and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Tier 3 are always going to be nuanced little apps, which tier 2 will wipe out. Tier 2 is the place to be. I don't think it is in any tier 1's gift to give about exactly what a tier 2 should provide, because they're not going to alter anything else other than their model. They're a model machine.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I am sorry I keep asking that question, but it bothers me because
it's worth keeping, an eye. But
yeah. And then, like, tier 1 really is just a big software program. And so being able to project management, break it down, work on components, improve a small thing here, another thing here, like, that's a traditional software project. Tier 2 can help with that immensely.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I think we can't avoid is tier 1 might decide to have a spin-off into tier 2, and they've got more resources.
That's great. Yeah. I think I can summarize my problem. If we... Hang on, it's coming. It's coming. If one of the key things is this, like, long trajectory agent operation with interactions between multiple long-running agents, all at your service, never coming back with any dumb questions, being able to take multi-step things with only hints at what to do at the faraway points, and it figures it out and has a go and comes back to you when it needs some stuff. Like, if the big guys want that and they haven't done it yet, then perhaps it's foolish to pursue that, because there's probably some reasons there that we don't comprehend that make it hard. Is that a valid thing to be worried about?
No, I would argue against that. So the counter argument would be these guys are in an existential race on models. I don't think this is I was saying before, this is a priority for them. I think they're
Okay.
looking for, and they'll be wise to do this, looking for the market to figure out what to use these models for,
But they
and then
just they
acquire.
did, but they just laid down what it was for. They just said it.
Yeah, but
It is what we want. It's the
yeah,
same
I know,
thing.
but they're not saying they're doing it.
Of course they're
The
doing it.
point,
They
the
must
point,
be poking at it.
the point being, as an analogy, if you're building an electricity grid, which is effectively what they're doing,
Hmm.
you would not be looking to expand into light bulbs, because you need to get the electricity grid up, you need to get the distribution up. These are big, big challenges.
Right.
They could, but I don't. I just suspect they're not. I
Okay.
think he's
Well,
talking about the art of the possible. This
nah.
whole
I think they're planning to do what he was talking about, but I'm not sure how it's going to be embodied. And we have a unique embodiment of how we approach it. The end result is the same. They will have a different way that will be a centralized way. I guess it's pointless for me to really speculate on how it's going to be. I mean, I think we both agree that this long-running agent thing is
is a real
that's
thing.
the place,
Yeah,
right? Like that's
yeah,
the thing. All this other stuff is it's kind of bullshit in comparison. Like it's all what's the word for it? Like it's gimmicky because it goes and then stops, right? It's not
yeah.
agency. It's not working for me because it should just keep doing stuff. You know,
Right,
like it should
right.
always be doing stuff, and I just poke my head in and check on it on occasion when I can be bothered. Like I'm
And
not the
also,
main
it prompts
motivator.
you. It's like, hey, dude, do you realize it's your wife's birthday in 7 days?
Right. There's things that
You,
it's like, oh, there's these
yeah,
things coming, and it can do things like talk about the future. It's like, well, there's an interest rate ruling comes out on XYZ that's going to impact you here, 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 and here. Now, if you make a move now, you can have this outcome, or there's this thing, or
right,
right,
precisely. It's that constancy of context.
right, okay, all right. So we both agree that long trajectory agents, or effectively endless trajectory, like continuous agents, they don't stop. They keep on going. That's the path for our platform, right? That's the thing we want to. That's the last
Yes,
thing remaining. Because once you have that, you don't want to use anything else. You don't want to use an app, or you don't want to use a one-off fucking chat. You want this agent that's always got your back. That's just working away like a
right.
slave,
And
doing your stuff.
how cool would that be in a social network where you've got connections with other long-running chats?
Right. Okay. Well, all right. Cool. Well, that's the thing that we'll strive towards then. I
It's
can.
I think we're okay. So this might be a bit hubristic, but every time, and it's very necessary for us to revisit this
Right.
quite often. Every time we revisit it, it still seems we have this core innovation. The innovation network is something I've yet to see anyone talk about.
Yeah, that's true, right? The social network part. Well, look, we're far enough down the release that we should just do it. I think that this interface is a great starting point. It surfaces all of the features that we speak about. The substrate still standing strong. I think it can take us to at least enough of an offering that we can know for sure if we're on a dud or a winner. I think.
I agree.
Um,
It's the big bet. We're halfway down the water slide. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, and then we can start making tools that can help us reason about our next move. Like, should we get into remittance? Should we get into, tax compliance? Should we get into, we can start to have these agents work a way to assess entry points for things that we're considering doing. Like, do we want another public listing? Do we want this or that? And it's working to calculate the optimum course given everything it knows in the world, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And on your earlier points about 22 minutes or so ago, um, about should we just wait? I don't think we should wait. I think,
I asked it rhetorically. I mean, I can't wait. That's kind of the curse,
well,
you know. It's like I can't just sit here and watch this
well,
thing unfurl.
the curses we might need to throw out, a substantial chunk because it just happens and it happens better and
I
faster.
know. It's just the point of pressing on is that during the time there's always a gap between when the next, like, even though things are happening really fast and they're really big things, they still aren't instant. And there's always a dead zone between, there's like big release, dead zone, big release, dead zone. And so if we can occupy those gaps, that's the only place left to not so much hide, but to feed. Like, that's the only place left to profit from is those gaps, because the big things land bluntly. They don't land with all-encompassing precision. They always miss some chunks, and there's always room for filling those cracks, I suppose.
Well, there's a reason why the mouse survived and the dinosaurs.
The reason why the what?
Large companies move slowly, even at this pace. This might sound fast, but it's not as fast as us. And we can always scurry around and make a seriously decent impact on the world.
Okay.
But changing course on OpenAI is a big deal.
Yeah.
I think what Sam was doing there is just showing the art of the possible. I don't read from that this is what they're actually doing.
All right. I think he was saying what they're working on and working towards, but I don't think that it makes a difference to us.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
Okay, so we use this platform to make long-running agents. We use these long-running agents to help us make wise choices. The background agents of all participants are able to interact through the social network aspect, so that it can suggest team formations where it's like, you've got a background in insurance, you've got a background in software, blah, blah, blah. You three should go after this other thing that's come up recently, so your background agents are able to look for job opportunities for you, or the best way for you to spend your time for the best bang for your buck based on your preferences. And they help sort of matchmake, I guess, in the background.
Yeah, there's also risk aversion. It's like, hey, this thing has changed. This is why your assumptions.
Right.
That's going to hit you quite hard.
Right.
Tell us what you want to do about that.
Right. Corrective action is required. This is the impact.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that sounds fun.
Have you noticed that OpenAI seems to have had a speed boost recently?
Yeah, that was the O3 boost, because they cut the pricing, so they figured out something about how to either optimize how O3 was running, or they got new hardware. Could be another thing, but the price and the speed are related. They cut the price by 80%, and then the speed went way up.
Yeah. It's getting blisteringly fast. It's getting Google fast for simple questions.
Yeah. So the last item I had to cover, which is not really it's not really the same as all the other things, is I don't normally talk about hardware.
Well, hardware is kind of
relevant,
but not really. It's a weird situation, isn't it? It's like you just assume that it's going to get faster.
I've not actually wanted a new computer for some time. However,
Right. Okay.
there's a new range of APU that's come out from AMD.
That looks water cooled. Is that water cooling or is that?
Yeah, no, it's water cooling. So it's what they're doing here is so this is the copper block. Down the bottom is that's the water pump.
Yeah.
And then on the back is just the single board computer. So basically, the reason I'm showing you this is that the silicon seems to be going a particular way, which is unified, and it's going
There's a
towards.
display on the front, or is that a print? 1249. What's
That's
that?
the clock and the heat of the CPU and the GPU.
Oh, it's got a display. Yeah.
Yeah. So the latest round of chips out from AMD do something unique in that they have a unified memory architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And so it lets you, I think some of the Apple Mac, like the M3 and the M4, I think
That's right. Yeah.
they got this
Yeah.
unified memory architecture thing, right? But the end result is you get this effectively a consumer grade chip with a pretty beefy GPU set of cores and silicon on it. But the main point is the memory. So this thing can run, for the GPU, it can run 112 gigs of RAM, which is a significant amount for a GPU. And the fact that it's like so close, it's like printed, it's like so close to the CPU and the GPU together that the tokens per second is like really quite high, relatively speaking. And so that's sort of the new innovation, I guess, is these unified chips that can, it comes with 16 CPU cores for starters, 32 threads, but it's also like the same as like what would typically be a server grade GPU. And so you can join these things together because they're tiny, and you can stack like 5 of them together, and now you've got a half terabyte worth of GPU VRAM that you can run local models on at better performance. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like the shift towards these big RAM cards. It's sort of cheating because it's not true VRAM, but the point is to run LLMs, big ones, on consumer grade hardware. And so you start to get these boxes that are all just sitting around the place, mostly idle, but able to run data center grade LLMs locally, which solves, a lot of the problems you're talking about with data sovereignty. Can be met by having a reasonable and affordable solution that can run on-prem, because now you can buy your own tin.
Fortunately, it's not the form factor is not rack mountable. It's a bit of a shame, or is it?
No, because that's just the board underneath. You can mount it like you got to make your own mount, but I've seen mounts on the internet that stack 5 of them together, and it's just the board, because it's just a little mini ITX form factored board.
Okay, what's the unit cost of these things?
That's where it gets good. So these things are run about, I think it's in pounds, that would be about maybe £1,200 for one of these things. But
Remarkably cheap.
yeah, what's important is the ratio of GPU VRAM, dollars per GPU VRAM. So if you look at 1 second. One second. I've now lost all my stuff. Oh, God damn it. Hang on.
What you need is your AI PA.
Yes, I know.
Step
I
in
know.
at
I
this
know.
point
I know.
and say,
I know.
Well, I was talking about something here. Can you bring back that thread?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know where the fluff has gone. But the point is that you can get $16 per gig of VRAM using this new generation AMD system, whereas the Grace Blackwell chip running in a data center card will cost you about $200 and something a gig. And if you want that high density pack, you know, those things they show you that are like mounted, you got to have a special mount kit, and like the densest thing that Nvidia will sell you is like, I think maybe it was like $400 a gig. So the economics, I guess, is what I'm trying to poke at, is that it just sort of took a 10-20x dive, which is bigger than we've seen in most other stuff.
So why? How did they do it?
They simply glued chips together and changed their design to suit running LLMs as opposed to playing video games.
Well, that seems pretty straightforward and obvious. Why is nobody else doing it?
I don't know.
I think we're talking about profit margin here.
I mean, AMD's been playing that game, a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a great fan of AMD.
Yeah, but it's probably only just starting to take root, I guess.
I mean, that's, it's an order of magnitude better. Every time I see that, I think, how, what, why, and is there some trend here that everyone else is going to follow? And then
It's
normalizes?
definitely, absolutely, that's a trend.
What's the anything on the power requirements of that unit?
Yeah, laptop grade.
Really?
So here's the thing. I finally found it.
So 1 kilowatt per GPU.
Yeah,
That's not a lot.
here we go. Strix Halo APU, $15 per gig. RTX 5090. That's like the big daddy card.
Yeah. You can't get those for,
Right.
Someone. Yeah.
Yeah, $63 a gig. That is AMD's data center GPU, $63 a gig. The H200 chipset, $284.
Jesus, H200 is already looking old, isn't it?
I know. That is Grace Blackwell, I believe. $365 a gig. And so that number is magical. Like, that is such a slashing of capacity cost.
Yeah.
And it runs on the equivalent of laptop grade power supplies. Like, it doesn't need big wattage. Like, these freaking things are like a kilowatt. Yeah, 1 kilowatt for the B100.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, like their memory bandwidth is what seems to stop them being like, data center grade. But I guess the point is, this type of stuff is like, a lot of applications are better run on your own tin, and the GPU was prohibitive before.
This is the thing I'm getting from the East African guys I was talking to.
Mm.
They all want to own their own tin because they're fed up of, getting stripped of resources
Yeah,
and
well,
data
you're not.
immediately.
Yeah, this stuff is affordable and available, right? Whereas like you're not gonna pick up a, a Grace Blackwell setup. No one like get in line, right? Like you need to drop like 200 grand just to get one rack unit at the moment,
Right.
and no one but the big boys are gonna pay that. But this, you could buy 200 of those,
So is that aimed
and
at gamers or is it? Wow, no,
no,
it's
it's aimed at
aimed at
LLMs. It's aimed at LLMs.
right. So it's not standard form, but you could get it into standard form, I guess.
Well, I just
That's a big deal because when you're dealing with a data center, what you don't want is uniquely architected units that just don't fit
yeah, you
because
can
airflow,
you can
cooling.
get it into standard form, but given what its use case is, you might not need that the way that you used to,
Mm-hmm.
like a distributed
Or
a
just
dis-
distribution if there's like on a network, not in the same building.
mm,
Well, could even be in the same building. Doesn't need to be,
yeah, if it
but
was spread
just known
around,
to the
if it
network.
was spread around and it was able to trade or switch, right? Because they don't have the confidentiality aspects in them, but they're sort of coming. Like AMD's real good with confidential computing. Like they have encrypted RAM and they have like all these like enclaves and attestations and all that. So they got some of the features. It's probably coming to the APU space.
There's kind of an arbitrage thing going on here, isn't there? You could sell cycles as long as you could get the capital cost. Let me think
Yeah,
about
but that's really what we want to get into, right? Is
it.
because you need to make it a good economic incentive to lay down the not terribly high capital outlay of one of these because you know that the rental usage is going to pay you back. And if
Right.
these things are consumer grade, you can access them.
All right. It's very similar to mining coins, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what we got to be able to
Instead of
like.
mining coins, you're mining tokens. Well,
Yeah,
you're not mining tokens, but you're producing token
yeah, and
availability.
that's a good way to burn excess power, but I just don't know, without the ability to architect these kinds of systems in an AI assisted way, the amount of work required to make a marketplace like that is like I struggle to fathom it, I suppose. Like it's hard to gauge it.
I'll tell you one way to potentially gauge it. I can bring this arbitrage to East African guys because they're talking about spending some shit ton of cash on a traditional data center or actually mega center, I guess.
Well, what would be an
Yeah.
interesting analysis to do is to, like, a lot of the costs in the data center game are packaging, which is like the building, the redundant, massive
Yeah.
megawatt powered
Yeah, cooling,
failovers.
tier 3 plus.
Yeah, cooling,
that kind of thing.
racks. Now you've got like some guys in suits that are like 100x, 150k odd per year just to sort of run around, right? And so
I wonder
I
what would a distributed... sorry to talk over you there.
the overhead, right, is like what fraction of the overhead could you do a distributed system for versus the centralized system? The cost
you
break
had-
might not be the same as we're used to.
Data centers are eye-wateringly expensive. If
Yeah,
you
but
were
they compound
to-
as well. Like they compound the expense.
Yeah, if you were to give credit facilities for someone who's willing to put one of these things up, it's like we'll loan you whatever it was, $1,200,
Yeah.
and you sell cycles back,
Yeah.
then the central overhead goes away.
Yeah.
And okay, so it might drop off net, you just don't earn. So
Doesn't
Perkins
matter though.
incentivized to keep it up on net.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. And then like what's
Distributed
your
data centers.
resiliency? What's your resiliency metric?
Well, resiliency is tier 4 because
You're
tier
probably
4
not
is
going to be offline.
no. Well, tier 3 is no single unit that can go out and take down the data center, and tier 4, the gold-plated one is you don't lose any capacity from any one unit going down. If you
Right.
distribute it, then you're kind of automatically on tier 4, but you've got graceful degradation. There's no
Yeah.
possible way of, other than at the software level. of
So
then
I guess
parsing
the
going
question is how much does their use case, the privacy in their use case matter? Because in the interim, the privacy guarantees of that type of system are reduced.
down. Not necessarily, because you've also got fragmentation and cryptography to go on.
It's reduced versus I own the whole thing and there's a guard at the gate.
Isn't that a matter of dictating what your network is? Maybe it's all in country.
I think that it could not possibly be all in country. But anyway, my point is that there's a bunch of trade-offs and there's a bunch of benefits. Number one being cost, rapidity, like the rate at which you could roll that out is significantly enhanced. The ability to run that off of something like a solar farm becomes much more feasible, because you like running a whole data center off of a solar farm. It that kind of looks stupid when you see it from space. You're like, well, there's a data center, and then like the amount of solar panels you need is significantly bigger.
And then you have to look at the battery pack and the
Yeah. Right now you
Yes,
got
and it's like,
all these like
and then
ancillary
you've
things.
got a massive, 20 kilowatt hour Jennies.
Yeah,
need
but
to
really all you
also-
care about is tokens per second per dollar, right?
Yeah.
Tokens per second per dollar.
Well, this is the dark edge, really, isn't it? It's dark edge.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
cycles.
That's exactly it.
And the barrier to entry has been reduced substantially.
It's become commodity.
that,
That's
one
pure.
quarter.
That's absolutely
quarter.
commodity.
Yeah.
Well, more than that. I mean, look at it compared to Grace Blackwell. That's
yeah.
20 times,
The thing is,
5% of the price.
A token is absolutely a commodity. Who cares?
Token's a token. Who gives a fluff?
Yeah.
So the ability to make a marketplace that can broker the switching requirements of such a system so that it could be open. It's not impossible, but it's kind of it's hard to gauge how hard exactly.
Yeah. It's
Right,
a
'cause-
non-trivial question.
Yeah, but then like it's probably still worth it. I mean, I don't know what their budget was, but you can't get that much in the way of data centers for like
The thing is, data centers are centralized because of cost. You get the cooling centralized, you get your redundant power supplies, bus bars, all that kind of good stuff. The big question is, just imagine that this trend is just going to continue. There's going to be
like this is
occasionally
early days. I
someone-
mean, it's been not even 2 years since GPT-4, and that's the kind of price drop we're seeing.
Right, because there's a great incentive to get LLM
Yeah.
units out there.
Yeah, and so you could
cheaper and faster.
you could arguably say that look, this commodity hardware thing is going to continue to be cheaper and to expand its capability. And a token's a token is a token. It just needs a lot of RAM connected to a lot of GPU but it kind of doesn't, like it's almost like the size of the models has not so much peaked, but the size that we're not seeing these like gargantuan models. The models are finding other ways to be useful that don't come from just like scaling massively.
Well, if anything, what I've seen over the last month or so is model sizes reducing and becoming more specific.
Yeah. So
It's not size does not matter as much because people
right.
are
I
starting to
think
understand
what
how to
you
work
what you
these
need
things.
to what you need to figure out from these guys is what is their specific, how do they envisage this thing being used? Because if they want it because they want to be sovereign, great. How are you going to use it? Like
Yeah,
who
the sovereign
who's
thing is
ha,
just table stakes.
ha,
They want to be sovereign, but that's not a use case.
no? What are you going to do with your sovereignty? Like
Yeah, and as far as I understand at the moment, what they want to do is to bolster innovation
right,
and generate income.
right. And so in that case, tokens per second per dollar, I think is still a great metric to compare that to. And you're like, well, these are your options for how you can deploy your capital and get this many tokens per second. Here's the different design philosophies you could follow. And then here's other metrics like the reliability of the system, the upgradability, all those kinds of things.
Also, I'm quite drawn to it that it's consumer level because the lovely thing about consumer level is you don't need that high level of precision because if one
Yeah.
fails, chuck it, stick
Yep.
another one in.
Reliable systems from unreliable components.
Precisely. I'll talk to them and see what they think about
Yeah,
this.
see what they reckon, because there are some alternatives to the big concrete bunker.
Yeah, well, at the moment they haven't broken ground, but they do have a stack ton of cash.
Yeah.
So how would I architect that? I've got this this thing that I think you touched on earlier on about the distributed data center. It's
Yep.
not actually a data center. There's no center to it. I think that is
Well, that's funny.
inherently powerful.
So
How do you take it off grid?
there was a breakdown here. There.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um. Yeah, depending on how you shift your workload, you can get some massive gains from not just defaulting to the traditional data center model.
Dependent on overhead of shifting load. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's a really interesting idea.
well,
I mean, the only application that I can think of immediately that would be terrible for this architecture would be microtrades, where literally, it's a premium to have a rack that has a single connection to a rack next to it, which is the
Yep.
market.
Yep.
If you don't care about that,
Yep.
if you're willing to wait a few minutes,
well, there's a lot of trades right now happening in pools like the Uniswap pools. You still there? Hello. So there's a lot of. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of trades that happen in Uniswap pools on Ethereum, for example, where they deal with like those are not fast pools, right? Like they tick over at the rate that the blocks get produced, and so they deal with issues like front running and all those kinds of ills. But they obviously don't need low latency like what a traditional centralized stock exchange does, because like
exactly, and
that works great. That works great for a lot of things.
And latency is, unless you're playing a game or on VR, latency is a kind of gas way of measuring anything.
Well, I think latency is really the presentation layer's concern. The data layer and the computation layer, latency is not. It's measured in like hundreds of milliseconds as opposed to tens.
Yeah, precisely. And if you're willing to wait, and that wait is only going to reduce, all you're having to deal with is your own impatience.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess a list of use cases of what they want to make their token factory do, I guess. Then there's all kinds of other middle of the road options, like data centers in a container is an obvious one. So you can just like drop down a piece of a data center. You don't need to.
Well, that's been around for decades. Yeah.
Yeah, but that I think is a trend that we like. I've never seen a drop like that in terms of hardware cost. Maybe since those very first custom silicon miners came out for Bitcoin, and it was like overnight the block reward was just like thump.
Oh, I remember. I was making coins on spot instances on AWS at one point, and it was profitable.
Yeah, and then it suddenly just went like, if you don't have this silicon, then you're not able to play the game anymore. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, we can.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? I do like that idea of a distributed data center.
Yeah, but that's what we want. Like, that's what we've been trying to make for ages. All this other stuff is just proving that you can have use case on top of blockchain-based infrastructure, so that before we commit to making the consensus core, because that takes bloody ages, and then you go get a pack of jackoffs to certify it and formally verify it. That process, we need to know that we've got the usage right.
Yeah.
And one of those usages is switching compute loads around. And so the exact use case for us would be like, you can punch in your instructions here, and then instead of it making just an API endpoint call, it's making a marketplace call. Where it's like marketplace, and you're like, this is my expected load, this is the bounds of what I'm willing to pay for it, here's my latency requirements. You sort of put that in the manifest of what you're offering, and then the market should be able to fulfill that, preferably with something local, right? Like I would prefer an APU located in the same city as me to fulfill my token request because it's just going to be faster.
And you could also exclude things. I don't want it to go outside the country. I don't want to go outside of, whatever. You exclude it.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah.
has been done before. I mean, spot instances of advertising has been done for 20 years.
Yeah. So it's not that I don't know how to do it. It's that there are many ways to do it, and we need to. I don't know how to tell which one is the right. Like, they cost a lot each one. How do we go about choosing which architectural choice we make? Because we can't choose them all. We can't run them in parallel. So,
Well, we don't need to make that choice yet. Is the first one. The second thing is, I think this is demand led, as opposed to architecture led, because there's trade-offs in each,
yeah.
and those trade-offs are quite sophisticated. It might still, get a containerized data center, build a massive mega center, distribute it amongst a whole bunch of workshops, across 10,000 square miles. There are trade-offs for each. We don't know what is necessary. We shouldn't guess.
Yeah, fair. Yep, fair enough. Okay.
It's a really cool idea, though.
It's
Well,
the
really
it's
cool
the well,
development,
it's
yeah.
the core idea. I mean, that's the
That's the edge. Yeah.
yeah, and that's where we can start to skim, because there's margin in there.
And interesting enough, same idea, although maybe a bit of a rabbit hole. There's a hell of a lot of phones with AI optimized chips knocking around there.
That's true too. That is true too. Okay, well, did any issues come up with any of the designs that we're talking about?
No, I don't think so. Really quite excited about the SITREP and where we're at.
It'll
Hopefully
probably
very,
be
very
within the
close.
next 24 hours that first file format will land. And then we have conversations that should be multi-person.
Yes. Once we get there, I think we've got our own booster. And there's a ton of stuff I can actually put in as real world.
Right. So we'll go here first. So this one first. Then this one, the contacts one, so that you can have multiple multi-party.
Well, we just need two-party, but yeah.
Yeah, what? I mean, two parties is as hard as n party. So,
Exactly.
um,
And then the thing.
and then the light bulb.
No, not yet.
No?
No.
Okay, no.
I'd say
God damn it.
transclusions is the next.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was sorry. Yep. So this one first, that button first, that button second, that button third,
Yep.
and then that button fourth.
Yeah.
And then the billing section.
Yeah. Well, we can work that out in due course, but with those previous buttons, we can start working in a common thought space.
Yep. 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 And then we can use that to reason about the design choices that we have to make for other things like computing marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can call me an idiot, but it doesn't sound very hard, to be honest, given the engineering that went into the protocol the switching of choice of provider, the switching of choice of compute provider doesn't seem that hard.
Well, it's just a matter of routing and advertising cost.
Yeah, advertisement, a selection process, a shuffling mechanism to make sure that the workload gets pseudo randomly at least spread around, and then
maybe a spot price algo. So if a unit is not being used, it might reduce its costs.
Yeah, but I don't think that there's a difference between spot and regular. It's all just you just offer your your units, right?
Yeah, it's just frequency, isn't it?
You need a redundancy method, so you need to you could choose to only run it once, in which case you'd want to choose high reputation providers, or you can choose to run on low reputation and spread it around in, and that gives you different characteristics in terms of your redundancy, but that alters the price and yada yada yada. So there'll be different kinds of. You should be able to parameterize that.
There'll be some kind of selection on multiple shitty, providers, and maybe it's first past the post. First to come back with a answer is the answer.
Yeah, like there's so I guess the complexity is the incentive mechanism. It's like, what's the ratio of a quick answer versus a medium answer? Should you get paid more, and what type of behavior would that incentivize? So those are parameters that are easy to get wrong. My plan was to just expose as many of those parameters as we can come up with, and then just game out some different scenarios and kind of just see how it goes.
Wouldn't it be cool if you had one of these units, I had one of these units, and while I was sleeping, you were using my unit along with yours while you're sleeping? Yeah, reverse.
That is cool. Yeah, that is cool. It'd be great. Except you're never in the sunlight, so it doesn't make the power cheaper. But
that would be factored in because it'd be choosing.
Yeah, right.
It'd be like maybe one job is
right, and then you should be able to know what jobs you need that are low latency, right? Like, maybe I don't care about 500 millisecond delay for some types of work.
Right.
But for other types, it's obvious that I need it. Like, there's a premium that I'm paying for speed.
Yeah, exactly. There's a difference between asking a question now or even voice, which is probably the requirement for the lowest latency.
Yeah, voice is just punishing, voice and video.
Yeah. Versus your calendar checker saying, you've got someone's birthday coming up in 2 weeks. Don't really care. I mean, latency doesn't even come into it.
Yeah, well, that should have been part of your batch processing, because those are the things that I expect to happen in the background while I'm sleeping, and I expect them to be ready for me at some point.
Yes. And that some point means you want it ready at that point. So what you want is consistency there, but you don't want speed. So don't care if you take an extra 30 minutes. So long as when I get up, it's there.
Yeah.
But if you're talking to an AI, you don't want to be sitting around for 30 seconds for it to get back. Cause that's
annoying. Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like there's maybe, I don't know, a dozen more steps to go before we can take a shot at the consensus mechanism. But the rate at which the steps are progressing, probably this year we can take a shot at the consensus, I would say.
Cool. Well, we'll see, because there's one thing we've learned: it's really difficult to predict.
Yeah, I know. It's so annoying. It takes so long and it costs so much.
Yeah. The question is, are we still in the right head mark? And I think we are.
Well, price is always important, right? And the price
Yeah.
for your tokens is always going to matter. And all else being equal, the service with the lowest overheads would win. Like, because
in the commodity market, yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right. Because if the cost of silicon is shared by all, the cost of electricity, much of a muchness, because you're all going to arrive at the same cheapest power source, then it's down to overheads, and it's a race against overheads.
Yeah, which is exactly the same as we saw when people were mining their own coins on an OPC.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Who can get their miner stood up for the least amount of effort, right? And you get people like, not that we're condoning this, but stealing electricity because they could get access to electricity at a much cheaper rate.
Yeah. Well, you remember when I was in Stow, I bought a whole bunch of old PCs off eBay. I stuck good graphics cards in them. I was mining, and the heat generated heat in my house.
Yeah.
So that I could turn off the heating. There's all sorts of ways people find
Yeah, that's
to
right. That's right.
maximize
That's
the
right.
profit, but the
That's
profit
right.
incentive is always there. That's the
Yeah.
consistent.
Everyone always wants it cheap.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well,
Nice. All right. It's looking better and better every time we talk. What do you say?
that's good, buddy. I don't just sit here twiddling my thumbs.
No, I just want to give you, massage your shoulders a bit and you say, go for it, man.
All right. Well, yeah, we're nearly there. So we'll get, very nearly there.
Cool.
Any other
All right.
topics?
Nothing this side.
No, we're good.